Our movie today begins with a vampire named Dracula, who is singing at his window, reminiscing about when his home was a castle surrounded by a hotel. He also recalls when his daughter, Mavis, met her husband Johnny in that same castle. Johnny decided to marry her and live in the world of monsters and vampires. Later, they are shown celebrating the hotel's anniversary. Johnny surprises his family with a song he performs on stage with the help of Frankenstein. Dracula then takes the stage, thanks Johnny, and informs the audience that he has a surprise to announce at midnight. He leaves the stage to speak with his wife, who tells him not to worry about Johnny's over-the-top enthusiasm. Dracula complains that Johnny's excitement ruins everything, but she advises him that he needs to accept that things won't always go his way, especially since Dracula is about to retire and Mavis and Johnny will be responsible for the hotel. Because of her super hearing, Mavis overhears this conversation from a distance. She is surprised to learn that her father intends to step down from managing the hotel, to live the rest of his life with his wife, free from the stresses of work. Excited, she runs to tell Johnny the news. Johnny is shocked because Dracula has always made him feel unloved and excluded from the family for being an ordinary human and not a vampire. Johnny tries to contain his excitement until Dracula makes the official announcement. Behind the curtain, Dracula rehearses the speech where he will hand the key to Hotel Transylvania to his daughter, but Johnny sees him. Johnny bursts in excitedly, but Dracula tells him he can't hand over the hotel because Johnny isn't sensible enough to manage it. Thinking of an excuse, Dracula tells Johnny he cannot inherit the hotel because he is not a vampire. He invents a monster real estate law stating that if a human inherits property from a vampire, the property will be redistributed. Dracula apologizes to a very upset Johnny, insisting the rule is serious and he won't risk the property. The curtain opens, and Mavis tells her father how excited she is for his announcement. Standing at the microphone, Dracula changes his mind and instead of retiring, announces an expansion of the hotel to accommodate more guests. Mavis is upset and disappointed by her father's decision. Afterward, his wife Erica confronts Dracula and asks why he changed his mind. He pretends not to hear her over the music and flees. Johnny seeks out Erica's grandfather, an inventor, and expresses his frustration that he is the cause of Mavis's sadness because he's not a monster. The inventor reveals he has a device in his lab that can turn a human into a monster. In the lab, which is filled with inventions, the inventor tells Johnny not to touch anything. He shows Johnny a device with a glowing stone that can transform humans into monsters. They test it successfully on the inventor's pet guinea pig. And Johnny decides to use it on himself. The ray hits Johnny, and he transforms into a huge monster. Meanwhile, Dracula, hiding from Mavis and Erica, hears a strange noise. He goes to the lab in the basement and is shocked to find Johnny as a hideous monster. Johnny, thrilled, tells Dracula about the transformation and runs to show Mavis. Dracula tries to stop him, knowing Mavis would be angry that his lie led to this. Dracula grabs the transformation ray to change Johnny back. As Monster Johnny heads out, he runs into his son Dennis, who is surprised by his new appearance. In the main hall, Dracula tries to zap Johnny back to normal, but the ray ricochets, hitting Dracula and turning him into a normal human who cannot fly. Everyone is stunned to see Johnny as a monster and Dracula as a powerless human. Dracula rushes to find the device to change himself back, but discovers it is broken. He becomes distraught and makes Johnny promise not to tell anyone. They return to the inventor for help. The inventor explains the device is broken because its core crystal, which is incredibly rare and hard to find, is shattered. He tells them a replacement crystal can only be found in a dangerous cave in South America, and their chances of survival are slim. As Dracula and Johnny leave, water from the hotel's fountain, contaminated by the broken device, transforms Frankenstein and Dracula's other monster friends into humans. While Dracula and Johnny are on a nervous flight to South America, Mavis searches for her father. In his room, she finds a handwritten letter from Dracula, stating his original intention to retire and give her the hotel. She realizes she was right, but doesn't understand why he changed his mind at the last minute. Mavis and Erica see a news report showing Johnny and Dracula, and one of their friends explains what happened. Upon arriving in South America, Dracula, now human, is initially fearful of the sun, but then realizes he can enjoy it without being burned. Due to Monster Johnny's large size, they travel slowly by bus. Mavis tries to call her father, but he doesn't answer. urging Johnny to hurry so they can find the crystal. Johnny is excited for the jungle adventure, while Dracula is tired and anxious. During the journey, Dracula falls into a river with predatory fish and gets covered in bites. He also drops his phone in the water during another call attempt from Mavis. Back at the hotel, Mavis and Erica go to the inventor's lab and find that his pet, also transformed, is growing into a giant, uncontrollable monster. Realizing Johnny is in the same danger, Mavis, Erica, and their now human friends take Erica's airship to South America to save them. Mavis uses her super hearing to locate Dracula and Johnny in the jungle. By a campfire that night, Dracula and Johnny have a heart-to-heart. Dracula explains that he built the hotel to protect Mavis, having raised her alone and always fearing something bad would happen to her. Johnny expresses his gratitude to Dracula for accepting him into the family. Just then, Mavis arrives. She hugs Johnny and tells Dracula she knows everything and loves him regardless of his human form. Dracula is shocked to learn his friends also became human. Johnny explains he wanted to become a monster to be able to run the hotel with her, per the law Dracula mentioned. Dracula confesses that he lied and made up the rule. Betrayed and angry, Johnny's monster form grows even larger and more out of control, and he rampages into the jungle. Mavis transforms into a bat, follows him, and apologizes for her father's actions. Meanwhile, Dracula, Erica, and the others reach the cave containing the crystal. Mavis asks Erica to get in touch with Dracula so they can use the crystal to save Johnny before it's too late. Dracula is surprised that his relatives have also turned into humans, and Mavis tries to understand what happened to Johnny. He tells her that he wanted to become a monster to be able to manage the hotel with her, according to their laws. At that point, Dracula admits he lied to him and invented that law, and Johnny gets very upset with Dracula for deceiving him. Even though Johnny thought he was being treated like one of the family, he grows bigger and bigger. Annoyed with what happened, he leaves the area and goes into the forest, with Mavis running after him to find him. She asks Erica to continue with Dracula to search for the crystal quickly before Johnny gets any bigger and dies. Mavis follows Johnny's footprints until she reaches him after turning herself into a bat. She stands before him and apologizes for what her father did. At that time, Dracula, Erica, and his monster relatives reach the Cave of Deadly Reflection, which contains the crystal. Inside, they fall into a waterfall and find lava in front of them, which they try to avoid until they reach the tunnel with the crystal. Dracula decides to enter first and discovers the tunnel is full of crystals. Erica calls Mavis and sends her the cave's location, telling her they have found the crystal and she must bring Johnny there quickly. Mavis then tries to convince Johnny to follow her to the cave. Inside, Dracula and the monsters get separated. He is terrified but tries to reassure them and keep them calm until Mavis arrives. When she gets there, she enters, calls for the others, and comes face to face with Dracula, asking about the crystal that will save Johnny. At that moment, Johnny storms the cave and shatters it, forcing Dracula and the others to flee before it collapses on them. Suddenly, the required crystal appears. Mavis quickly grabs it and tries to aim its beam at Johnny while avoiding the sun, which could burn her. Frankenstein and the rest of the family help her get to a point where she can aim the beam at Johnny without being burned. Mavis succeeds in aiming the beam at Johnny, but he doesn't return to his normal state. Dracula then decides to approach Johnny, who is agitated and upset with him. He tells Johnny to remember his words about looking on the bright side, and that by destroying the cave, he will lose all the good things in his life. He adds that he regrets not seeing Johnny's positive side, and that although he wanted to keep him away from his daughter, he learned a big lesson because of him. Moved by his words, Johnny calms down and hugs him. They aim the beam again, and Johnny returns to his normal state, hugging Mavis and Dracula, while the others turn back into monsters. On your way back to the hotel, they discover it has been destroyed by the inventor's pet, which had turned into a monster. Dracula is very sad about his hotel and sits down to cry. However, Johnny promises he will rebuild it. Dracula tells Johnny to build it their way, not his, as this is a new chapter in their lives. A year later, Dracula is surprised to find that Johnny has rebuilt the hotel in the same old way again. Afterwards, the family returns to live together in the new hotel, happy and pleased.